Richie Lovett, welcome to Booktopia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, I love the fact that in this book, when you talk about your childhood, you can't disguise the fact that you're what I would have to describe as a sort of silver spoon surfer. You went to the beach in a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, as much as I did love, Dad's cars, and we had a few of them. At one stage, there was a couple of Cadillacs and a Rolls and something else parked in the driveway, and Dad had a real fetish for cars. He still does. Beautiful cars, and I loved travelling around in them, but I just, this core scene down at Manly that I was trying to infiltrate, it was pretty raw, and back in those days, it wasn't very affluent, so the thought of me rolling down to the beach in a Rolls Royce, it didn't really give off the best impression that I wanted to sort of give off, so those days were a little bit cringe-worthy for me, and while I appreciated the lift, I wish we had an old beaten up, Holden station wagon or something that we could have gone down in.
Of course. You talked there about, you just mentioned the word raw, and I guess my idea about surfers is a pretty dishevelled, unkempt kind of bunch of people. But again, the thing that sets you apart in this book is that you admit up front that you're pretty kind of OCD about neatness, and that you like to sort of organise your clothes when you're on tour. You like to fold and colour code everything.
I know. It's tragic, isn't it?
Did you get
definitely
teased
not
a lot by your...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I was renowned as the guy on tour, that travelled with various, toiletry bags full of, skincare and sunscreens and, moisturisers and pharmaceuticals and all sorts of stuff, you know what I mean? So, but that's how I operated. I liked it that way. I liked knowing where everything was. I liked knowing that everything had its place and had its order, and I just felt better when everything was in its place and everything was neat and tidy. And I've always been like that. It wasn't something that was taught to me. It was something that I had from a very young age. My brother was completely opposite, but I would get up in the morning, my school gear would all be folded and ready, and my shoes shined waiting at the end of the bed.
And that order, in a way, highlights the first really big kind of dramatic episode in the book, which is the ultimate disorder of a tsunami. And you tell that story incredibly powerfully. So where were you when you got caught in a tsunami? Okay,
so we were on the east tip of Java at a place called Grudgian, and it's known within the surfing community as G-Land. And it's one of the world's most well-renowned left-hand reef breaks in Indonesia. In the world, it's really famous. So we'd been dispatched there on a trip for Hot Tuna, which was my main sponsor at the time, and it was my first big trip away for a sponsor, and it was a huge deal for me. And
How old were you?
I was early 20s at that stage. So it was a big adventure for me, because I was not only going away with a whole bunch of guys and I was trying to impress these people. We were going to a really remote place in the world, pretty much cut off from civilization. So to arrive there that day, had one quick surf in the afternoon, and that night is when the tsunami hit us. So it was complete unaware. We had no idea it was coming. Just that noise that I heard when I sat up in my heart was the only indication that something was happening, and certainly then I had no idea what it was.
Did you think you were going to die?
Yeah, I thought I was dead, absolutely. I thought I was dying. I had no idea of how ferocious and the force behind this thing, whether it was just going to wipe the whole of the island out. I had no idea how big it was. But at the time, when this thing hit me, and it literally just picked my hut up and demolished it within seconds, and I was trapped underwater. I just went, oh, this is it,
What year was this?
This was 1994.
So this is long before the Boxing Day.
So I was 21. I was around 21 years old.
Finally, you can kind of believe in yourself that you really have got what it takes, and then along comes the ultimate test. Yeah. So you feel a pain in your leg. You feel that there's something that's not quite right. And what happens next?
So this was in August of 2005, and just this little niggling pain deep in my groin on my right-hand side, which I had attributed to just surfing and wear and tear, and we're doing some fairly acrobatic type movements out the surf. So, you know, very rarely are we not having some sort of injury or ailment. I lived with it for a while until it got to the point where it became blaringly obvious that there was a problem there. So I went and, you know, through a series of x-rays and MRIs and tests and whatnot, it was discovered that I had this growth or a tumour inside the ball joint in my right femur, so the top ball joint there, and it was taking up about roughly half of the ball joint, and it was suggested towards the end of 2005 that certainly it was a tumour, but whether it was benign or malignant, it would be completely unknown until a biopsy was performed. So I ended up going to America and having the biopsy done over there early in 2006. The biopsy comes back and it's malignant. And I'm diagnosed with a cancer called clear cell chondrosarcoma. And it's a very rare, very slow growing cancer, type of bone cancer. One that can certainly be very fatal, and one that can start growing quite rapidly. And so that's why action had to be taken.
And once you know what you know, once you have that diagnosis, obviously you're staring down kind of several barrels at once, aren't you? I mean, there's life, but there's also for you the idea that you might never surf again, and that is huge, isn't it?
Just trying to explain what it's like to hear those words. You know, you've got a malignant cancer. You know, it was weird, but the first thing that came into my mind was, you know, my surfing. At that point in time, it wasn't really, hang on, I might die from this. It was more, you know, the surfing was the thing that came into my mind first. But then once I'd taken check of everything, I was like, okay, this is not only going to affect my surfing, it could actually take my life. That whole life that I'd mapped out for myself beyond, you know, a professional career had all of a, you know, that script was torn up and thrown in the bin.
What's so lovely about this story, from my point of view, Richie, is the sense of solidarity and community, not only from individual surfers who were mates, but even in the business part of your kind of circle. So your sponsors kept faith with you to an extraordinary degree, and I found that part of the story very moving. You
know, I think while I wasn't you know, one of the most popular surfers on the world, I think maybe a lot of surfers in general, you know, and the whole worldwide surfing fraternity could relate to maybe my story and who I was, because I was a battler in a way, in that, you know, the results didn't come easy, and
you really worked for it.
Yeah, I had to really work for it, and I did have a lot of potential, and I think people appreciated that. So, you know, having people come and visit me in hospital who I had no, you know, I didn't know these people, and they were just coming to see if there was anything they could do to help, and just say, look, we're here for moral support if you need us. But that, I got to say, is just, it speaks volume to surfers in general. You know, we do all share this one special thing in the ocean and this sport, and it's a huge family. It's gigantic. But, you know, surfers in general are pretty nice people. They're pretty cool people, and I feel like they maybe just are a little closer to knowing what it's all about.